the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, and may peace and blessings be upon the Messenger of Allah. Welcome to Islam Made Simple. Here, I try to provide a comprehensive overview of Islam. We have presented this through the objectives of Islam, and now we are presenting the comprehensive picture, what is Islam, as explained in the Holy Quran. Especially when explaining Islam to non-Muslims, I believe it should be done this way, by starting with the comprehensive picture first, not by starting with the rules. Islam is not just about prayer, fasting, zakat, pilgrimage, or prohibiting alcohol and pork, and so on. We do not begin with the branches, we begin with the fundamentals, with a comprehensive picture. And if God willing, I am granted health and life, and if God willing, we are able to arrange support for this important project, we will record all of this, including for non-Muslims in English, God willing. In any case, I have explained Islam through the objectives of Islam, and now we are in the episodes that explain Islam through the Quran. We have explained that the Quran has chapters, and these chapters are very important, but they are distributed throughout the Quran in a way that we have called circles. Refer back to the episode on circles in the series. We talked about the first chapter, which is about Allah the Almighty. The second chapter about the unseen and the witnessed worlds. The third chapter about the messengers and the scriptures. The fourth chapter about the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family. The fifth chapter about morals and rulings. In the previous episode, we briefly discussed the sixth chapter, which is about destiny. And today we begin with a very important and major chapter that will take several episodes to cover, which is the chapter on the categories of people. The categories of people, the Quran classified people based on their stance in this world and based on their fate in the hereafter. This classification appears throughout the entire Quran and is repeated often. So remember this principle. It is extremely, extremely rare for the Quran to speak about only one category of people. Only in certain verses does it address a single category, but you should immediately expect that it will soon mention the opposite category. For example, in Surah Al-Haqqah, when Allah, the Exalted, speaks about the distribution of the records, this is one of the scenes of the Day of Judgment, one of the events of the hour. So as for the one who is given his record in his right hand, he will say, here, read my record. And it goes into detail about this group. Now, it is talking about this category. But immediately, because as soon as I read about one group, I expect that surely soon after, the opposite group will be mentioned. And indeed it says, but as for the one who is given his record in his left hand, he will say, remember this rule. Whenever one category is mentioned, another category is always mentioned alongside it. This is the classification. This is very important, and we need to understand it, because serious jurisprudential and doctrinal issues are based on it, and even, by the way, political matters as well. All of them are built on the classification of people. So let's understand the equation of classifying people. In the Quran, people have been divided and classified on two levels. So this is the first principle. There are two levels of classification in this world. That's one level, and a classification in the hereafter, that's another level, and they are not the same thing. We must distinguish between them. Those who fail to distinguish are the ones who fall into problems, even doctrinal ones, and get involved in extremism and other issues. Let's understand this. There is a worldly classification and an afterlife classification. The worldly classification is that people in this world are divided into three categories. And as for the classification in the hereafter, people in the hereafter are divided into two categories. Let's start with the worldly classification. Right now, I will give you the overall picture, and then I will go into detail about each one. The classification in this world divides people into Muslim, which is the first type, and non-Muslim or disbeliever. This is the term used for someone who is not a Muslim. And we will explain why this type is called a disbeliever. This is the second type. The third type in the worldly division is the combatant. So we have Muslim, non-Muslim, and combatant. Now, as for the classification in the hereafter, there are two types. The first type is the believer. I'm not talking about the Muslim now. I'm talking about the believer. And the opposite of that is the disbeliever. So the word disbeliever means one thing in the hereafter and something else in this world. Sometimes the same term is used in two different ways. Just as we explained when talking about deen, sometimes it means accountability and sometimes it means way of life. Both use the same word. Likewise, the word disbeliever means one thing in this world and something else in the hereafter. That's why some people get confused about how they are called disbelievers and so on. Which classification are you working with, the worldly classification or the one related to the hereafter? Let's understand this, because this distinction will help us a lot. And let me say something. Some people say or think that only Muslims will enter paradise. Take it easy, be patient. The issue of entering paradise or hell, does this matter pertain to the hereafter or to this world? It pertains to the hereafter. So you fall under which classification? The classification of the hereafter. Why are you applying the worldly classification to it? Don't mix them up. The classification of this world is one thing and the classification of the hereafter is another. When we understand this equation, honestly, it will solve a lot of major problems for us. All right, let's move on. Let's start with the worldly classification. And let me remind you, in the worldly classification, how many types of people are there? We said there are three types. The first type is the Muslim. The second type is the non-Muslim or disbeliever, and the third type is the combatant. All right, let's start. Who is the Muslim? Who is the Muslim? The equation for this world is very, very, very simple. The Muslim is the one who says, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. That's it, says it with his tongue. I'm not talking about a believer. I'm talking about a Muslim. As long as he says it with his tongue, he has entered Islam. Okay? Whoever hasn't said it has not entered Islam. But there's a line of the two testimonies. Islam is built on 5 pillars, and the first of them is the two testimonies. You have to enter Islam. How do you enter Islam? The heart alone is not enough. I'm not talking about fate or destiny. Let me remind you, please, no one should take this worldly classification and use it to decide who enters paradise or who enters Islam. There's no connection. By the way, there's no relation. Who enters paradise and who enters hell, that's a different matter entirely. I'm not talking about that at all right now. What I'm talking about is a worldly classification. The first type is the Muslim. Who is the Muslim? The one who has pronounced the two testimonies. The second type is the non-Muslim, and for simplicity's sake, the term kafir is used. Who is the kafir here? The kafir here does not mean someone who is going to hell. What is meant by kafir is simply someone who has not pronounced the two testimonies. Is that straightforward? The third classification is the combatant. Who is the combatant? The one who has taken up arms against people, whether those people are Muslims or innocent, vulnerable individuals. Both cases are considered combatants. For example, if someone takes up arms against innocent, vulnerable Christians, we call him a combatant. Now, if a Muslim takes up arms against another Muslim, we call him a combatant. If a Muslim takes up arms against an innocent non-Muslim, we also call him a combatant. So who is the combatant? It is the one who takes up arms against our community or against innocent, vulnerable people. This is what we call a combatant. That concludes this classification. Let me say something very important now. This classification has nothing to do with who enters paradise and who enters hell. Of course it has an effect. But it does not necessarily mean that everyone who utters the two testimonies of faith will enter paradise, nor that everyone who does not utter the two testimonies will enter hell. We will explain this, so don't rush. And the combatant could be a Muslim. And because of war, this person may enter hell, and he could also be a non-Muslim. So pay attention, this is a purely worldly classification. Let me also say something very important. This classification we are talking about is a jurisprudential classification, not a doctrinal one. We are talking about jurisprudence, not about creed. For example, there are people who have uttered the two testimonies of faith but are disbelievers in their hearts. They're hypocrites. What are they? Inwardly, he is a disbeliever, this is true. He has uttered the two testimonies of faith, but he is still a disbeliever, and their fate is in the lowest depths of hell. So please, let's leave this topic for later. When we say it is a jurisprudential classification, what does that entail? It entails jurisprudence, meaning as long as someone has uttered the two testimonies of faith, he is to be treated as a Muslim. I have nothing to do with what is in his heart. The only one who knows what is in the heart is Allah, the Exalted. He is to be treated as a Muslim in terms of jurisprudential rulings. What are the jurisprudential rulings specific to Muslims? For example, it is permissible to eat meat from his slaughter. He is buried with Muslims. He can marry Muslim women. These are jurisprudential matters specific to Muslims. And of course, there are many other things as well. In truth, when it comes to jurisprudential matters. Now, as for the non-Muslim, the rulings depend on his type as well. Again, the jurisprudential rulings vary according to his category. For example, a non-Muslim who is Jewish, it is permissible to eat the meat slaughtered by him, but for a non-Muslim who is a polytheist, it is not permissible to eat from his slaughter. So, when we talk about jurisprudential rulings, what are they based on? They are not only based on the main categories, Muslim or non-Muslim, but also on the subcategories under each main category. Let me now just summarize the foundation. And in the next episode, God willing, I will go into the details with you. Let's start with the foundation again, to remind and summarize. People in this world are different from people in the hereafter. In this world, there are three categories: Muslim, disbeliever, and combatant. In the hereafter, there are believer and disbeliever. The word disbeliever here is different from the word disbeliever here. This is the confusion that people have fallen into, and we will explain it, God willing, later. Now, in this world, who is the Muslim? The one who has said the two testimonies of faith. Who is the non-Muslim? The one who has not uttered the two testimonies. What follows from this? There are legal rulings based on it, whether a person is treated as a Muslim or not. Now, someone might be a Muslim or a disbeliever, but that's not my concern. Remember, our focus is on this world. We can only judge people by what is apparent. If someone says the two testimonies, then he is a Muslim and we treat him as a Muslim. We have nothing to do with what is in people's hearts. And for that reason, it is not permissible for you to call someone a hypocrite. Why? Because the word hypocrite means something inside his heart, and you do not know what is in his heart. This is the general, serious, and main classification, and we will go into detail about it in the coming episodes. The types of Muslims, the types of non-Muslims, the types of those who wage war, and then in the hereafter, the types. This will take us several episodes, but it is very important for us to understand the categories of people as mentioned in the Holy Quran. I leave you in God's care. See you in the next episode. Peace be upon you and God's mercy.